We all know that the old Star Wars expanded universe could get a little crazy at times, but if I asked you, when did Luke and Darth Vader meet for the first time, or when did they see each other for the first time, you would probably say on the Death Star. And you would mostly be right about that. However, when doing some research for a video coming out either this week or next, I stumbled across a comic I'd never read before. It's called Sandstorm, and it's about Luke meeting a young Anakin Skywalker on Tatooine when he's just 10 years old himself. Sandstorm is a part of the Star Wars Tale line of comics, and those who have read Star Wars Tales know that although it is an official Star Wars comic line, the stories within weren't always canon. And although some of the stories were actually adapted to canon, or parts of the stories were adapted to canon, this wasn't one of them. However, given that all Legends is non-canon, I thought it'd be interesting to look at nonetheless. So the story starts off kind of similarly to where we see the Skywalker family in Episode 4. Luke is angry at Uncle Owen because he won't tell him more about his father, and he just wants him to live a simple farming life. And obviously Luke is made for greater things. However, Luke is 10 here instead of being in his teens like he is in Episode 4. And there's a lot of cool callbacks too, so like Aunt Beru is pouring blue milk. Luke has a model Skyhopper on his desk. And just like in the movie, Aunt Beru is telling Uncle Owen that it's natural for Luke to be curious. Nonetheless, Luke is unhappy with how Uncle Owen is treating him, and he walks out into the desert and is caught in a sandstorm. And in that sandstorm, Darth Vader appears before him, and he says, "Come with me, it is the only way. The Force is strong with this one." And Luke tries to talk to Darth Vader, but he doesn't really answer, and it turns out he's just like a ghost. And then a young Anakin Skywalker walks through the ghost and asks Luke if he's okay because, like I said, they're caught right in the middle of the sandstorm. They talk. Luke thinks that he's a Tusken Raider. Anakin says no, kind of ironically, nothing that sinister. They kind of wander the desert for a while, talking about how neither of them know their fathers, how they're both kind of picked on and called the little guys. And they're both around the same age, and I never thought about how similar a young Luke would look compared to Anakin as we see him in Episode 1. And they look really similar, and sometimes it's hard to tell the two apart when you're reading the comic book. After wandering the desert for a while, they come across a dead Tusken Raider who has been presumably killed by the elements, and they take his gaffy stick and wander off into a cave. And in that cave, they're attacked by these dog-like creatures. But before that, the two boys kind of talk about the things they're interested in. Luke says that he wants to fly a Skyhopper, and Anakin says that he wants to pod race. And interestingly enough, neither one of the boys know what the other one's talking about, which kind of points toward the whole, weird time shift thing going on here. Things continue to get weird as they stumble across a broken down R5 unit, and this seems to be the same one that the Jawas try to sell to Luke and Uncle Owen at the beginning of Episode 4. Even more bizarre is that they try to make a flare out of the droid's remains and say that doing so they're going to bust the motivator, which is interesting because, of course, in Episode 4, that droid blows up because its motivator is broken. So again, pointing to that weird time shift going on. Also, yes, this is the same droid that appears in another Star Wars Tales comic as Skippy the Jedi droid. The boys also kind of speak to each other and realize that they're both very attuned to the Force, although they don't use those words, they just realize that they can sense things. And they're attacked by a Krayt Dragon, and Luke throws the gaffy stick down its throat, kind of reminiscent to how he kills the Rancor in Return of the Jedi. Luke eventually passes out in the sandstorm, and he's awoken by a search party who'd been looking for him because it had actually been one of the worst sandstorms in Tatooine history, and of course they were very worried about it. And Luke tells Uncle Owen, I just fought a dragon, and of course Uncle Owen doesn't believe him until Luke mentions that he was with someone named Annie. And of course Uncle Owen knows that Luke's father was Anakin Skywalker, so when asked how did the boy survive one of the roughest sandstorms in Tatooine history, he says, well, he's a very special boy. And I wonder if in Anakin's timeline he was also found in the middle of a desert, waking up from a fever dream with visions of Luke Skywalker in his head. Anyway, that's the story, and actually I really, really like it, and there's a few reasons for that. The first is it's got a lot of nice throwbacks to both the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy. Of course, there's the obvious Luke is in the Lara's household, and you can see some stuff that appears in the movies, whether it's like the kitchen or his skyhopper, as I mentioned. But there's also some more, I guess, deeper things, like Anakin mentions that his mother is afraid of sand people and she's scared of them. Luke is shown to be a super whiny kid, and also he's seen to have an ability to throw things or put things into the mouth of large creatures. I also like it because it really humanizes Uncle Owen. I mean, we see very little of him in the movie, but we're kind of unsure what to feel about him. I mean, he seems kind of mean, but also maybe he's just kind of like a toughie. But at the end, especially when he's found Luke, who is obviously he thought might be dead, it seems like he actually does care for him, and that adds to his character, at least for me. Anyways, guys, I hope you found this interesting, and let me know if you wanted me to do this some more, focusing on little one-off Star Wars stories that are fun or interesting or noteworthy. Anyways, thanks as always for watching. May the Force be with you.